Welcome to week one of the plumbing diagrams class. This is our very first lesson. You've already seen the welcome and introduction. Hopefully you've figured out how to get onto your blackboard and complete your entry assignment. And now we're going to get right into it. So where are we going? Ultimately, our goal for the class is to end up being able to take a floor plan. This has plumbing fixtures labeled on it. And then have you be able to generate a plumbing design from that. Lay that out into a just a bird's eye view, flat view of it. So there's different perspectives that you can have of the drawing. And then be able to take that bird's eye view and flip it over onto some isometric paper, which I'll be talking to you about how to be able to get that, how to print that paper. But that's taken and just adding and making from a two-dimensional picture to a three-dimensional picture and just showing some greater detail. So on this one, you can see some of the plumbing fixtures that that are there in the house with the plumbing design added in, and you can see some of the, just some of the plumbing there with the drain pipes and vents that are labeled by the dash. And we're going to be covering that, but that's just kind of where you're headed and what you're looking to be able to do. But for in this week's lesson, what we want to cover is I want to make sure that you got what you need. First thing is you're going to want some plain paper to draw on. Just some plain white copying paper is fine for now. Sharpen those pencils, have those ready, and a nice straight edge. And since we're going to be doing measuring and scaling, go ahead and use a hard ruler that you're going to be able to use. Now, on the job site, you're not going to carry a hard ruler. If you're looking at that, you probably got your tape measure hooked on your hip, but it's going to read the same. So let's look at and make sure. I just want to make sure everybody knows how to read a ruler. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to take and break down 1 inch increment. So you might have a 25-foot tape measure hooked on your hip. You pull it off. So that 25 feet. You can break that down. You've got 25 feet, and the foot is broken down into inches. Hopefully that everybody knows that there are 12 inches in a foot. And this is what one of those inches look like. Let's just look. If you have, for the drawing class, are pulling out a ruler, and let's pretend this is the edge of the ruler. So this is a hard ruler here. One thing to note that on your hard ruler, there's gonna be a little bit from the edge of the ruler to the edge of the first line, and then it says 0 here. That's where you're going to start taking your measurements from, is from this line. They make that to where, man, if you smack around, if it's a wooden ruler and you're smacking up the end, and you might not have a great end surface. So it just gives you a definite clean line to start your measurement from. This next main increment, let me go ahead and put it over here, try to blow it up really big for you to be able to see in the video. There, it's going to say 1, saying 1 inch. You carry this on over, and you'll have another line, major line, and it will say 2 for 2 inches. And makes up 12 of those into a foot. Okay. Now, how do we read the fractions on this ruler? 1 inch. You could take. We can go back to some of your grade school days, and put it in comparison to that. If you have 1 inch, that's the whole thing. If we go and we split that and put a line, it's the next longest lines on the ruler. So you have the real long ones that are a little bit shorter. You put that, you split it, that's going to be in the middle. And so that is the ½ inch mark. So if you're going to measure something to a ½ inch, there it is, right in the middle, the next longest line. The next lines that are just a little bit shorter than those is going to be in between the half. So you take that half and you split it right in the middle. You're going to have something that's called a quarter, because you take the halves and you split both halves in half. How many pieces do you have now? So if we're looking at it as like, let's picture that thing as a candy bar. All right. So we got a whole candy bar right here. But there's 4 of us, so we could cut the thing right in the middle, and then take it from that. We can cut those 2 halves into half, and now you got 4 equal pieces. Thinking about 4 equal pieces, I went to Subway the other day, and I've got 4 small kids. So I was telling them, hey, would you mind taking that sub and cutting it into, can you have that quartered for me? I didn't realize how difficult of a task that was going to be. But we got this foot-long sub sandwich here. All right, that was a foot-long sub, and just said, hey, can you quarter that thing for me? And so they took in one piece was cut like this. The next piece was like that, and then the next piece was like this. So it worked out real fun for the kids when you're like trying to say, hey, which piece are you going to want? Of course, they're all trying to grab one of these big ones, and whoever got this piece got left out. So if you want to quarter something, the easiest thing would have been to do, if you're working at Subway and you want to be able to quarter that Subway sandwich, all right, the easiest thing to do versus trying to cut one and just start to make some lines, go ahead and find the half. Cut the sub right in half to begin with. That's easier to see. And now you've got these halves to work with, and you can cut those in half. That's easier to see. And then everybody would have been a little bit more happy seeing that. Okay, so there you go. There's your... See, all this math, it applies in all different areas of life, whether you're working in fast food restaurants or whether you're plumbing underneath a house. So we take that, we split it. That's our 1/4 inch. So we got the 1/2 inch mark, we got the 1/4 inch mark, but there's also some smaller increments on that. You take that 1/4 inch and you split that in half. So the next mark down for the length of lines, you split all those in half. Those are called 1/8. So we had the whole, we had the 1/2 inch mark in the middle. The next ones are quarters. And then you split the quarters in half, and you've got an 1/8. Okay? Now, on your tape measure or on your ruler, there's one more smaller line. You take an 1/8 and you split that in half, and that is the 16th inch mark. You see what you're doing with the fractions and how that works? If you take a half and you cut it in half, look at your fraction. 1/2. So you got a 2 there, right? Split a half in half, and it's got 1/4. You doubled your denominator. That goes, so when you cut it in half, the denominator doubles. So if you take a 1/4 and you split that in half, now you have 1, the 4 doubles, and it becomes 8. If you want a half, what's half of an 1/8? You take the 8 and you double it. It's 1/16. You say, well, what's half of a 16th? Well, take your 16 and double it. It's 1/32. You say, well, wait a second. Well, how about what's half of 1/32? Well, double that and say it's 1/64, and so on. And you can keep going. That's how when you're splitting a fraction in half, just double the denominator, and that's what it is, okay? Now, you got a picture, and it's got all these little lines in there. Okay, here's what it looks like. Now, what becomes a little bit more of a trick is when you're not used to reading them. If you have something and you're measuring a line and it stops right on one of the very little small ones. So you're measuring a line. It's starting right here. You're going to start measuring it at the 0, and you're measuring a line all the way across, and it stops right here. Now you look at that where it stops and you say, oh, that's on one of the very smallest little lines. So what you got to say is, oh, what we just learned is one of the very smallest lines that we can read on our tape measure is a 16th inch mark. So when you see it stop on that little line, it's going to be something 16ths, okay? Something in 16ths. But you can't say, oh, that's 1/16. You also, what I've seen people make mistakes before is they just count up and say, okay, well, I'll just count just the little lines. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/16, because I can count 5 little ones. No, what you're doing is you need to count the little equal parts. 1/16. Go to the next line, it's 2/16. But if we're reading, we're not going to say 2/16. You're going to reduce that down. What's the 2/16 is the same thing as 1/8. Okay. Then you get to 3/16. And then you can go to 4/16. Now, 4/16, look at the line changes. You said 1/8 for 2/16, and it went up to the next size because the next length is in eighths. Here's the next length up. We're going to say something. It's not eighths anymore. It's quarters. So this 1/4, but 1/4 is the same thing as 1/8, 2/8. So 1/4 is 2/8, or it's also the same as 1, 2, 3, 4/16. Okay. So in this case, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9/16 of an inch. You look at the fraction and say, did I one? It was on the little one, so you know it was going to say be something in 16ths. Just to check yourself, you could say, let's see, you could count it up. Say 9/16 there. None of those little ones. Okay, now you don't want to have to start at the 0 every time. You might want one thing that's really quickly recognizable on your tape measure is this middle mark, the 1/2 inch mark. So if you're measuring a line and it's anything past the 1/2, it's just something quicker to be able to say until you get used to doing it. But you don't want to sit there and be going waiting, making somebody wait too long where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all and counting them all the way up. You know, at the 1/2 inch mark, and you know it's going to be something 16ths. 1/2 is the same thing as 8/16 is the 1/2 inch mark. Okay, so you can go ahead and start at the 8/16, and then you're just going to go up one more. It's one past that and say, 9/16. So finding yourself a quick reference part. The same way as if the line went to, let's just say the line goes to here. Now it's the next line up, so it's not the 16th mark, it's an 1/8 inch mark. Now you could go back and say, let's see, let's count our eighths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. And that's what it is. But you could also, to just be quicker about it, you could look at the 1/2 inch mark and say, I already know that 1/2 is going to be 4/8 since it's on the 8th, and I'm going to go one more. So it can make you identify the 1/2 inch mark, and you can quickly go to the next one, and it makes you read the fraction a little bit quicker. But if you need to, on your beginning, go ahead and take your time and add them all up, just making sure that you get, it's better that you get it accurate than the speed. Okay. All right, let's see. What I'd like to do, here's your first little thing that I'm going to have you do as far as for your lesson. Okay. You can still see those well enough. Let me take these away. Let me give a couple questions. And what I would like for you to do is, if you're going to see me in class, you can either make this as a little addition to your drawing that I'm going to assign. If you're only taking this Plumbing 150 class, then I would like for you to just send me, you've got my cell phone number, send me a text message and just put in these answers, okay? I'm going to put a few lines, and you're going to tell me what fraction that is, okay? So let's start off with this one right here. That is number 1, okay? Number 1 is that line right there. What is that? What fraction would be that? Is that 15/16? Is it 7/8? Is it 3/4? Is it whatever it is, 3/8? You tell me what's the fraction, okay? Number 1, what's that fraction? number 2. I'm going to go to this one right here. There's number 2. What is that right there? Let's go with number 3. I'll put 3 right down here. What's that line represent? Number 4 is that one right there. And number 5. Okay, so there's 5 questions. Send that answers to me when you get that. Okay. There's your first 5. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to give you a second to look at that. Freeze the picture if you need to. Whatever you need to do. As you take those measurements before I erase it here. All right, I'm going to go ahead. That's hopefully giving you enough time to be able to write those down. If not, you might need to back it up, freeze the video, whatever you need to do to get that. So let's move on. That was reading some fractions on it, reading your ruler. Now, of course, if you got further on and if you were reading a section and you had a inch line here, that it was 10 inches, and the next one was 11 inches, and you had the half, the 1/4 inch marks, the 1/8 inch marks, and then the 16ths. All right. Then what you're going to do is you're going to read it, and you're going to say 10 inches. And then let's just say the line was going from the 0 and it went all the way up to here. Now, first of all, it's ending on one of the very little ones. So you know it's going to be something in 16ths. So you're going to say it's 10. And you could count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 7/16. Or you could look and say, oh, well, that's really close to something I can identify the half real quick. And I know in 16ths, the half is 8/16, and I'm just 1 less than that. So 8/16, let's go back down to 7/16 of an inch on that. So that is, when you read that line, it would be 10 and 7/16. Okay. Now, you've got to know how to read your tape measure before you get scaling down at all, okay? In any of the trade work, just reading a tape measure is going to be really, really important to you. If you need help with it, please get with me for some extra help. There's also tutoring at the school that's available to you. It's free. It's not going to cost you a thing. We can pair you with a tutor that can help you as far as reading these measurements, anything with the math related. It's going to be real important that you're able to read it, get the fraction, and then be able to add, subtract fractions, multiply and divide them, fractions, mixed numbers, whole numbers, that sort of thing. Okay. So once you get that down and you feel comfortable reading your tape measure, now we're ready to scale. Okay. I don't know if any of you like to do any building of models, but typically if you went to a hobby store and you bought a model of a P-51 Mustang airplane and you had it there, it's going to have some type of scale on it. And it's going to say, oh, this airplane is, whatever scale. This is if you were to scale this down, this is 1/15 of the actual size, or this is what whatever it is. Okay, they scale the thing down. Now on your drawings, we're going to start to do some drawings for some house plans. And if you get a set of prints, those prints are normally to scale. Actually, let me pull off. I think on the introductory video, I pulled up and held up a set of prints. So let's look at those prints. So here is the drawing that we had that I showed was a floor plan. We do a lot of the work for Habitat for Humanity. So this is one of their floor plans, and you'll probably be putting in the plumbing to one of these houses if you're in the plumbing class. So we look at the plan, and then we're going to say, if you look at the drawing, right down here it says floor plan, and very small, you can see it says 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. Okay, 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. That is the scale of the drawing. So on the drawing, and that is a very common scale for building. They may also break it down to an 1/8 inch scale. It might get a little bit bigger. You might have something on a 1/2 inch scale if they need to show more detail of something. There's also, if you get into scaling as far as with machining and things, you might be the actual size may be smaller than what they show. They might actually blow it up for greater detail drawings, and detail drawings might look a lot larger than what the actual is. So they need to do that on the menus at burger joints. They need to say this burger shown in the picture is not really what it looks like in real life. They always show this monster burger like this, and you can see each individual patty, all the bacon on there, the lettuce. It looks just perfect. But by what the server brings out to me, it doesn't look like the same burger. It's smashed down. The bun, everything's all shifted each way. They need to put a little thing on there saying this is not actually what it looks like. But what we want to do is we're gonna sometimes, if we do a drawing, we might say it's not to scale, and we're gonna let them know this is not what it looks like. It's not any type of particular scale. Otherwise, but if I'm gonna submit this drawing for a plan, I actually need to scale it for them to say, you can take your tape measure, put on my line, and get an actual measurement for what, and knowing what that length of that is going to be in real life. Okay, so let's look at the 1/4 inch scale. Let's put that the scale is 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. Now what you'll notice as in print reading and all your dimensions, when they list some dimensions, that you'll see that you'll have the foot, and the single hash mark represents a foot mark. The double hash is a inch mark, to how many inches. And what they'll normally do is they'll put 1 foot and they'll put a dash, how many inches, or how many, it might be 2.5 inches or something, but that's how you will see it. Okay. Now, what that means is it means that we're going to scale down the drawing to where that if we were to read 1/4 of an inch on our tape measure, in real life, that would be 1 foot. Okay, we got 1/4 of an inch is going to be equal to 1 foot in real life. Okay, so if we had 3/4 of an inch on our drawing, if 1/4 equals 1 foot, but we have 3/4, that's going to equal 3 feet in real life. Okay, that's how we're going to scale it. But You're going to say, but it's not, the lines aren't going to always come up to an equal quarter of an inch. So we got to know what is in between there. So let's take our tape measure again and start at the 0. And we're going to say here, this right here is the first quarter of an inch mark. Now you got to know how to read the tape measure in order to know where the first quarter of an inch mark is. Okay. So you should have 3 more of these to make up 1 inch. Okay. And then it's going to go over there. It's going to be the 1 inch mark. As you said, so 1 quarter, 2 quarters, which that's the ½ inch mark. This was 1 quarter of an inch. Okay. Now we take and we split that down. If we cut that quarter of an inch in half, all right, that was what? The 1/8 inch mark. Okay. We take the 1/8 inch and we split that in half. And what were those called? 16ths. Those were 16th inch marks. Now, on the 1/4 inch scale, a 1/4 inch being 1 foot, we're going to look at from here, from the 0 to the 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to say that's worth 12 inches because there's 12 inches in a foot. If this whole thing from here to here represents 12 inches in real life, if a 1/4 inch equals 12 inches, what do you think the 1/8 of an inch represents in real life? The 1/8 of an inch is right in the middle. So from here to here is going to be 6 inches. The 1/8 of an inch is going to be equal to 6 inches. Now, if the 1/8 inches equals 6 inches, what do you think half of the 1/8 is, or that 16th inch mark is going to represent? From there, between here to here, is 3 inches. So if you have a line going from here to this mark, it's the 16th inch mark. Every small 16th was worth 3 inches. That's 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches. To get to this mark, if you had a line, if you measured a line and it was 3/16 inch long on your drawing, it was only 3/16 of an inch, you would say in real life, that line is 9 inches long. Okay. What helps us when we're able to do that? Let's go back and look at that drawing. They put a lot of dimension lines to help us know how the distances on certain things are. Okay. You can see some dimension lines on there and some different dimensions. On this drawing, they show from, if I can hold it still enough for you to see, they show from this hash mark here to this hash mark here, this little line in between, which represents the center of this doorway to the outside edge of the wall, is 2 foot 8 inches. Okay. So 2 foot 8 inches is what that is. They've got other dimensions along here showing you different wall lengths and things. But there's going to be some things on there that they might not say how big they are. You may come here to a lavatory sink and say, I wonder how big of a they want here. Well, if they've got one drawn, you could take your ruler, lay it out here and measure the line. And if it's a 2-scale drawing, if it came, you could measure it and then just say, oh, well, that I measured it and it was a ½ inch long. So if we measured it a ½ inch, 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. So we've got 1/4 of an inch. We had a half, which is 2 quarters. We would know that was a 24-inch lavatory sink. That sink is 24 inches, okay? That is how we scale. That is a quick lesson on scaling. Now, let's see. Let me give you a drawing. It's going to make you think a little bit, hopefully. and use some of this scaling. Okay. Here will be your drawing assignment. I want you to draw this right here. Once again, you don't have to be an artist to be able to do this. You just got to be able to draw stick figures. And yours is going to come out a whole lot better looking than mine. It should anyway, because you're sitting down, hopefully at a table. You got everything else scooted out of the way. Nice flat surface, draw nice straight lines. I would like for you to try to be precise on this. There you go. That's all you have to draw. Just a couple lines on your piece of paper. There's a little bit more to it than that. I'm going to give you some real life measurements, and I want you to scale this. Okay. So you're going to take on your final piece of paper, you're going to have your name written up at the top and printed nice and clearly. You're going to have down here, you're going to say that the scale is 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. 0 inches. So you got your name in the upper left corner, the scale in the bottom right corner of this piece of copying paper that you're going to draw this on. Now, let me give you some scale, some real life measurements here. So in real life, our house is going to be 36 feet long there, 36 feet. We're going to say that the first floor level is going to be 9 feet. The second floor is going to be 8 feet on that. And you're going to say, well, I think I can manage that. Well, let me give you one more thing. Try to figure the pitch on a roof. For some of you that's got a little bit of experience around with a carpentry background, or you might know how they express pitch on a roof. They're going to say rise over run. So that little symbol would look something like this. All right. If you've got a 12.5 pitch roof, what that means is that beside the little vertical line shows you that you're rising 5 inches for every 12 inches of horizontal travel. Okay? So you're going to try to find a pitch to this roof. That pitch, I'm going to label it. Let's go ahead and make it a 12.5, okay? So is that really how steep a 12.5 looks? Or should it actually look, does a 12.5 look like this? Or does a 12.5 look more like, this? What does a 12.5 pitch roof look like? Okay. Does that get shallower? Does it get steeper? What does it need to be? You're going to figure that out. Okay. And then you're going to scale it for me. Okay. So you got to figure out what is that going to be in real life. And then you've got to scale it. All right. So let's look at this. Let me talk you through it just a little bit. First of all, where's the peak going to be? Right in the center, right? Typically that peak's going to be right in the middle. Well, how wide's the whole house? 36 feet, right? So what's half of 36? If the peak's going to be in the middle, what's half of 36? 18 feet. So to the middle, you've got 18 feet on this side of the peak, and you've got 18 feet on that side of the peak. Okay? So now if we just said for every 5 inches up, we're going over 12 inches. Look how many inches did we go over from here to the center? We didn't go 18 inches over. We went 18 feet over. Okay. There's 12 inches in a foot. So you went 12 inches 18 times. Okay. So, and then how many times are you going up? For every foot, 1 foot over, you go up 5 inches. Over another foot, up 5 inches. Another foot over 5 inches. So really, if you kept doing it, you could stair step this thing up 5 over 12, up 5 over 12, and just keep going like this. Up 5 over 12, up 5 over 12, up 5 over 12. And then what you do is if you connected all these points, it creates you a pitch, a certain pitch to a line. Okay? Now, I would not encourage you to do that for every one to say, okay, I'm going to try to scale that and create this little stair step and make a line across. It's going to be too hard to read. Figure it out over the whole thing. Okay? At any point along the path, when you create a line, it's filling in all those other little points. So why don't you just figure it from start to finish, how much would be? So you went, if we were going to go 12 up 5 for every 12 over, okay? So take 5 inches, multiply that by 18. You went over 12 inches is a foot. You went 18 feet. So that means 5 times 18 is going to give you the vertical amount of rise. 5 times the distance to the center, 18, is going to give you this vertical rise from the middle up to here in inches, okay? Now, when you go to, and then when you scale it, change your inches back over to feet so that you can then take it and 1/4 inch scale it. So see how you do. I want you to put a little bit, I don't want to walk you through the whole thing. I want you to put a little bit of brain power into it, okay? So I'm going to leave that for you. All right. Now, you're going to get your sheet of paper. You're going to start working this out. You're going to start getting your scale and everything else. And then you're going to see what's working, what's fitting on the page, and what's not. What you may want to do is do your math first. Figure out how long of these lines are going to actually be. So let me just walk you through that just a little bit. So what you might want to do is to say, oh, we said from here to here is 8 feet. This line right here I'm just going to draw is going to be 8 feet long. Okay? 1/4 of an inch equals 1 foot. 1/4 is 1 foot, but we're going to 8 feet. 2/4, 2 foot, 3/4, 3 foot, 4/4 is 4 foot, all the way up to 8/4 is 8 feet. Okay? 8/4. What is that? 4 goes into 8, 2 times even. That is 2 inches. Your 2-inch mark, the 2-inch mark on your tape measure represents 8 feet in real life. So when you draw this line, you're only drawing a line that's 2 inches long to represent this line. If this line right here is 2 inches long, this one over here needs to be exactly 2 inches long as well. Okay? If you went to 9 feet, that's 9/4. So you went exactly 2 inches, but then you had to add 1 more quarter to it. So you're at 2 1/4, okay? 36 feet, that's 36/4. 4 goes into 36 how many times? That's how many inches that's going to be. So maybe you might want to do your math, work out some problems. The sheet that you turn into me or that you take a picture of and send to me, I want that to look really good. Not a bunch of crinkled up. Don't put your coffee stains on it and a bunch of race marks and everything else. I want it to look really nice and clean and neat. Sharpen that pencil. Give me good, crisp lines. Not something that looks like it was all, broken pencil lead or something. Okay? Do your math and figure out, and I want to see what you come up with as far as coming up with that pitch. Then one more step to it, okay? You've got a piece of paper there. So go ahead and get all your measurements down and everything. You can back up your video and look at all those measurements again. I don't want you writing all those measurements on here. You're doing a 2-scale drawing. Since you put a scale down here, you don't need to label any measurements, really. I could take my tape measure and measure it, and I could tell exactly what you've got. All right, I'll measure it out, and if that comes up to if I measure that line at 2 inches, I'd say, oh, I know that that's an 8-foot high wall right there. Okay, so you're going to draw this nice, clean frame of a house, and then I want you're going to center that on your paper. Okay. Center the house on the piece of paper. So I'm not saying this is not to scale. Your house should not look exactly like this. There should be like, well, when he showed it to me, it looked like more room on the side of that. I don't know how close your edge of your wall might come to the edge of the paper. Okay. It might not look like this. Mine is not to scale. Yours will be. So figure out how long you need to draw these lines. And then I would like from the peak of the roof to the top of the paper to be equal to from the bottom to the bottom of the paper. I want it to be centered top to bottom. Then I also want you to take this and center it from left to right. So from the edge to the edge of the paper and from the edge here to the edge of the paper, these need to be the same. Okay? Once you've got your house drawn or you've got all your measurements taken, you're prepared to be able to center it on a piece of paper. Okay. Let me see. That's going to be your project for this first one. So you had the 5 questions as far as being able to read your ruler, getting those increments, and now you also have this scaling project. If you have some questions about it, just reach out to me, let me know, and just say, hey, I am not getting this, or hey, can you better explain this to me, or whatever, to be able to do it. But I've kind of gone over. You should have the information that you need now to be able to complete this assignment. You've got a week to be able to complete it. Next week, I'll post another video and the next assignment that we've got, and then you're going to be going on from there. So let me know when you've got these drawings done. If you are only taking this Plumbing 150 class, you're going to take a picture of this drawing and send it to me, okay? Take a picture that includes the whole sheet of paper. I know what the drawing ought to look like on a piece of paper. I can tell if you've got it right or if you have it wrong, okay? So, and then you're going to be sending these to me. If you are in the Plumbing 120 class, I would like for you to bring your drawings to me for the next time we meet in class. And then I want to be able to look at your drawings there, offer any suggestions or help that I can in person, okay? One more tip before we go. In your drawings, before you draw a line, okay, to get a nice, clean looking drawing on your paper, you have to take 2 measurements for every line, okay? What I mean by that, if this is the edge of your paper, okay, let's just say that's the edge of your paper, bottom edge, left edge, and you're about to draw, you've done the math on it, and you figured out how close does the edge of my house need to be to the edge of the paper. So you figured out that I need to draw this line, and let's say you figured it out at 2 inches. I need a 2-inch gap. That is not the correct measurement. You need to figure it out on your own. But let's just say you figured out and you came up to 2 inches. You take your tape measure or your ruler, lay it down and measure from here over and put a very light mark with your pencil, very light. I don't want to see these big, heavy wads and then trying to draw a line through it. I don't want to see all these big marks, okay? Very light little mark, but enough to where you could see it right dead on the 2 inches, okay? Be very precise. Now, you are not ready by coming in, you measured in and say, well, I measured in 2 inches. I'm just gonna slap my straight edge there and measure it on down. Okay, that actually it came out looking pretty good. But I don't want you to just slap. I'm going to over exaggerate. If you just put one mark and then put your straight edge and you can't see anything, well, yeah, you can't even see it. You don't know if you're really running parallel to your paper. Right here, you're 2 inches in, but now you're over 2 inches in. So for every line you draw, you need to come, and say, 2 inches in, I need to put a little mark here, and then I'll measure in 2 inches here, and I'll put a little bit of a mark. And now you got 2 little marks. Let me draw them a little bit heavier so you can actually see them. There you go. Now you're ready to take your straight edge, line up with those 2 marks, and then you're exactly 2 inches off the edge of the paper the whole way. So make sure every line you draw that you're making 2 marks to be able to connect between those marks and make a very nice clean line, okay? I'm looking at for some real accuracy, you gotta remember, if that line drifts only the smallest increment that you can read, a 1/16 of an inch, on the 1/4 inch scale, which I had written up here, on the 1/4 inch scale, how much did that wall move in at the bottom or out at the bottom if you're off of a 1/16 of an inch? Well, you moved in real life, you moved 3 inches. You would not want to go into your house and have the wall 3 inches in. It would be a huge difference if it was leaning and it was 3 inches in closer on the bottom than at the top. So let's get those lines really, really crisp and clean and give me some good looking drawings, okay? All right. What do you have to do? What's do? 1, the 5 fractions that you're going to send to me that you read 5 fractions on the tape measure on that on ruler that we gave, okay? The 5 fractions, you're going to send those to me. Also, number 2, outline of house, centered on the 1/4 inch scale. All right. There you go. That's your work. Have fun with that. I'll look forward to seeing most of you the next class, but then just to also let me know if you've got any trouble with that, okay? Just reach out to me. We're going to stay in touch. So make sure you get those entry assignments done. Remember, if you don't complete the entry assignments, they will, before their due date, the college will kick you out of the class. So make sure those entry assignments are done, and then get these done to get the scores. I'll grade them, get those grades posted, and then you can view those grades in Blackboard, okay? All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.